Armenian feminism lived its heyday in the immediate aftermath of the genocide in the capital of the perpetrator state. Armenian feminism is vigorous and popular and effective to a certain extent in Istanbul, the Ottoman capital of the time, from 1919 to about 1933. Armenian Women's Association, Heigen was established in Istanbul in 1919, and as far as we know, it's the first Armenian women's organization that does not have a specific goal attached to its name. Armenian women had different types of organizations before this date: orphan care, educational societies, basically philanthropic activities. But come 1919, they have this organization who does have the goal of taking care of the orphans of the genocide, providing shelter and relief in general to the Armenian women and children who had been abducted during the genocide. But in general, advancing the consciousness of Armenian women to their rights, to their civil, political, and educational rights. This is the first Armenian organization, women's organization, that has equality mentioned in its program explicitly, along with those other more traditional demands that they have. In terms of their backgrounds, these feminists were, almost all of them, were Constantinopolitan Armenian women, or they were women from different urban centers who found themselves in Istanbul at this point. They come from middle to upper class families. They are educated, at least with middle school or high school diplomas. Some of them did pursue university degrees in Europe and returned to Istanbul after this. They are well versed in at least one Western language. Many times French, but also English and German, sometimes Italian as well. Armenian Women's Association had a bi-weekly publication called Heigen, which means Armenian Woman, which was published in Istanbul from 1919 to 1933. Heigen was founded and edited by Heigen Mark, who can be seen as the leader of this mobilization in this immediate post-war years in Istanbul for women's rights. Heigen Mark herself identified as feminist, and many of the contributors to the journal, from Anais to Zari Kalemkerian, from Zari Bahri to Bartu Kalantar, thought of themselves as feminists. Their mission was to explain to the broader reading Armenian public what feminism meant to them. The journal included a variety of topics pertaining to history of feminism, history of women in general, or articles about contemporary feminists, because they were very well aware of Western feminism of the time. But they're also very cautious to make themselves into Armenian feminists, because they are very much also concerned with the Armenian national agenda of the time. They are a response, actually, to the existential crisis called genocide that just had happened. In that sense, feminists do see it as their responsibility to extend their efforts, energies to the refugees, to the orphans, to the sick. So they are the ones who actually populate institutions such as the Armenian Red Cross, the Armenian refugee institutions of various sorts. They try to insert feminism into the Armenian national agenda. And Armenian Women's Association, like Heigen, is a supporter of the Armenian cause, which means the territorial cause of re-establishing a greater Armenia. So they support the Armenian national delegation at the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, officially and openly. But it had its radicalism. One of the campaigns that these feminists waged from very early on was about membership and representation into the governing bodies of the nation, by which in Istanbul you mean the commissions of the Armenian Patriarchy, Educational Commission, Jurisprudence commission that was responsible for the churches and the property endowments of the community. And there was a parliament of some sort called Armenian National Assembly. Since 1863, Armenians had this kind. It's for their self-administration, self-rule under the Ottoman Empire. So the feminists, starting from 1919, wanted women to have the right to be a representative of their group, community, nation, and be members of the Armenian National Assembly. They also wanted women to partake in the educational commission. These commissions had 4 or 5 members. They would endorse textbooks. They would send inspectors to Armenian schools. They would check the teachers and teachers' output. So, and there were a lot of teachers in many Armenian schools who were women already. So they're making this claim that at least one of the members of the Education Commission should be women. Up until 1926, there's no such thing as a civil marriage in the Ottoman Empire or then Turkey. Okay? So it was the church that married people, divorce, inheritance, alimony, childcare of various sorts. This was all governed by the church and by the Jurisprudence Commission of the Armenian Patriarchate. So feminists made the claim that because there were no women in the commission itself, it was their rights were not being protected. They argue that the 1863 constitution, which is the first Ottoman Armenian constitution, does not categorically negate women's rights in the sense that it does not say that women cannot vote. It says that any national individual, Askain Anhad, any national individual over the age of 25 is eligible for vote. So feminists use this, saying that it's an interpretation that by national individual, you assume that it's a male, your subject is male. They also make the argument that they are being taxed because at this time period in 1919, the Patriarchate, because it has to deal with all these incoming refugees who are entering Istanbul in desperate states, the Patriarchate issues a new tax called fatherland tax, Heigen, which is a tax that women with some property and income are also obligated to pay. So the feminists are doing this age-old, since post-French Revolution argument that we are paying the tax, but we are not able to make the laws. So they want decision-making power on behalf of their community. It is a real movement for Armenians at this time period that their women want to change things. But even though there are a lot of Armenian men supporters, when it comes to these more radical type of demands, they are not supported by the overall community, or definitely not by the Patriarchate itself, which is, or the Armenian National Assembly, which itself is the organization, the institution that they want to have an influence in. But it's not just that, because after 1926, all these commissions slowly die, because the Turkish Republic happens. After the establishment of the Turkish Republic, the rules governing this particular Armenian community's institutional bodies change. Armenian Women's Association closes its doors sometimes in 1922 as a response to incoming Turkish nationalism, but Heigen, the journal, continues publication up until mid-30s. Heigen is the last Armenian women's journal that was published in the Republic of Turkey. After its folding in 1933, because of the political conditions in Turkey, Armenian community, let alone its women, did not have a vibrant movement for change in general in Turkey. They mostly tried to conserve what they had. And this continued up until late 1990s, when a group of young women came together and founded an Armenian feminist group of their own, originally called Hayuhiner, and wanted to learn about their history, which they did not learn from the Armenian schools that they went to, or from the kind of books that they read about the Ottoman and Turkish women's movement. One missed or eclipsed the women Armenians, and the other one, the latter, missed Armenians because they were not the normative citizens or subjects of either the Ottoman Empire or the Turkish Republic.